They laughed when he brought the blind Apache girl, until she did the unthinkable, white heavy check mark. The cowboy rode slowly, his horse's hooves kicking up small clouds of dust with every step. His name was James, though everyone in the nearby town just called him Jim. He was known as a brave and kind man, but people often misunderstood him. They thought he was strange because he cared deeply about others, even strangers. Jim had been traveling alone for several days, heading toward a small trading town where he planned to sell some goods and rest for a while. The trail was rough, and he had to ride carefully over rocks and uneven ground. He loved these quiet mornings when the world seemed still, and all he could hear was the soft sound of the wind and the occasional call of a bird. It was during one of these quiet mornings that he noticed something unusual on the side of the path. At first, he thought it was a fallen branch or a shadow, but as he got closer, he realized it was a small figure sitting on the ground. Jim slowed his horse and leaned forward, squinting. There, under the shade of a twisted old oak tree, was a girl. She looked no older than 12 or 13. Her hair was long and dark, tangled with the dust and leaves, and she held her hands in front of her as if trying to feel the world around her. She did not look up as Jim approached, and her movements were cautious and careful. "Hello there," Jim said gently, keeping his voice soft so as not to frighten her. "Are you all right?" The girl turned slightly, but her eyes didn't seem to see him. Jim noticed immediately that she was blind. Her pupils were unfocused, and there was a strange calm in her expression, as if she was listening to something no one else could hear. Jim's heart went out to her. He had seen people struggle in the world, and he knew how difficult life could be for someone who could not see. "Don't be afraid," he said. "I won't hurt you, I just want to help." The girl remained still for a moment. Then slowly she reached out with her hands as if searching for a shape, a voice, or some sign that would tell her he was safe. Jim guided his horse closer and spoke gently again. "My name is Jim. I'm just passing through. Can I help you get somewhere safe?" The girl tilted her head slightly, listening. Then very softly she spoke in a quiet voice, a mix of hesitation and trust. I don't have anyone," she said. "I've been alone for days." Jim's heart sank. No child should be alone in the wilderness, especially one who could not see. "Well, you're not alone anymore," he said. "I'll make sure you're safe. Can you come with me?" The girl hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Jim dismounted slowly and offered his hand. She took it cautiously, feeling the warmth and strength in his grip. With his other hand, he guided her toward his horse. Carefully, he lifted her onto the saddle behind him, making sure she was balanced and secure. Then he mounted his horse and began the slow ride toward the town. The journey was quiet at first. Jim didn't want to overwhelm her with words. He could feel her hands gripping him lightly, trying to find comfort and direction. He decided to speak softly, telling her small things about the world around them. "See that hill over there," he said. "It's where the wind comes sweeping across the plains. You can almost feel it dancing through the grass." She smiled faintly, a small gesture that told Jim she was listening. "I like the wind," she said. "It tells me where things are. I can hear the world in it." Jim was amazed. Even though she could not see, she had learned to understand the world in her own way. It reminded him that strength did not always come from what you could see, but from what you could feel, hear, and believe. As they traveled, Jim learned more about her. Her name was Yana, which meant eternal bloom in her language. She had been separated from her family during a raid, and since then she had been wandering alone, surviving on what little food she could find and listening carefully to the sounds of nature to stay safe. Jim felt a deep sense of responsibility. He could not imagine what she had endured, and he promised himself that he would protect her no matter what. By the time they reached the outskirts of the town, the sun was high in the sky, casting harsh shadows on the dusty streets. Jim dismounted and gently helped Ayana down. "We're here," he said. "You'll be safe now, I promise." But safety, Jim quickly realized, would not be easy. As they walked into the center of town, people began to notice them. Merchants paused in their work, children stopped playing in the streets, and whispers spread like wildfire. "Who brought her here?" someone muttered. "Why would anyone bring a blind Apache girl into town?" Laughter followed. Not cruel laughter, but the kind that comes from surprise and disbelief. People pointed, shook their heads, and whispered to one another. They did not understand why Jim had done what he did. Some were curious, some were skeptical, but most were doubtful. Jim felt a pang of frustration, but he did not respond with anger. He knew that people often feared what they did not understand. "Ignore them," he said to Ayanna softly. "They don't know you yet. They don't understand you yet, but we'll show them." He found a small cabin on the edge of town that was for rent. It was simple, with a wooden door, a tiny window, and a fireplace. It was not much, but it would be safe, and it would give Ayanna a place to rest. Jim helped her inside and set down the small bundle of food he had brought with him. "This will help you get your strength back," he said. "Take your time. There's no rush." Ayanna sat quietly, feeling the strange new world around her. The smells of the town, wood smoke, fresh bread, and animals, were different from the open plains she had wandered. But she also felt something new: safety. For the first time in many days, she did not have to worry about finding food, avoiding danger, or staying hidden. The townspeople, meanwhile, continued to watch. Some came closer, peeking through the windows, whispering to one another about the strange girl and the cowboy who had brought her. A few were curious, but most were amused. "How will she manage?" they asked. "She can't even see." Jim ignored the whispers. He knew it would take time for people to understand, but he also knew that Ayanna was not like other children. She was strong, clever, and capable in ways that others could not yet see, and he was determined to help her show the town exactly who she was. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in deep shades of orange and purple, Jim and Ayanna sat outside the cabin. The wind blew softly, carrying the scents of the plains into the town. Jim told her stories of his travels, of the mountains and rivers he had seen, of the animals he had encountered. Ayanna listened carefully, her face calm and thoughtful, absorbing every word. "You've been very brave," Jim said finally. "To survive all alone, to keep going even when things were hard, that takes courage." Ayanna looked at him, her eyes blind but her expression clear. "I had no choice," she said softly, "but I am glad you found me." Jim smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest he had not felt in a long time. "I'm glad too," he said, "and we'll face whatever comes next together." As night fell, the town grew quiet. The stars appeared one by one, twinkling in the vast sky above. Jim and Ayanna sat in the soft glow of the moonlight, listening to the sounds of the night. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled and the wind whispered through the trees. For Ayanna, this was a new beginning. For Jim, it was a chance to show the world that courage, kindness, and determination could come from the most unexpected places. And for the town, it was the start of a story they would never forget, a story of a blind Apache girl who had entered their lives, and the cowboy who had believed in her when no one else would. Little did anyone know, the real test of Ayanna's strength was still ahead. The people who laughed today would soon learn that she was capable of the unthinkable, and when that day came, their laughter would turn to awe and respect. But for now, it was just the two of them, sitting under the stars, listening to the wind, and beginning a journey that would change their lives forever. The next morning, the town was already buzzing with activity. Merchants were opening their shops, horses neighed in the stables, and children ran across the dusty streets with laughter. Jim led Ayanna out of the small cabin and into the heart of the town. He wanted her to feel a sense of belonging, to begin adjusting to this new life among people who had so far only stared or laughed at her. "Stay close to me," Jim said gently. "It's busy, and there are lots of noises. You'll need to listen carefully, but I'll help you." Ayanna nodded. She had already begun to trust him completely. Though she could not see, she felt safe with Jim. She could hear the rhythm of his steps and the confident sound of his voice guiding her. She also had her own way of sensing the world through sounds, smells, and the movement of the wind. The town was a challenge, but she was ready. Their first stop was the general store. Inside, the air smelled of wood polish, dried herbs, and the faint sweetness of sugar. Jim introduced Ayanna to the storekeeper, an older man with a thick mustache. "This is Ayanna," Jim said. "She's new in town. She'll be living nearby, and I want her to be able to get what she needs." The man raised an eyebrow. "A blind girl living here? In all my years, I've never heard of such a thing." "She's not just any girl," Jim said firmly. "She's smart and brave, you'll see." The storekeeper shrugged but handed over a small bag of food and supplies. "We'll see," he muttered, clearly unsure what to expect. As they walked back outside, townspeople began to take notice again. Whispers spread quickly. "That's the girl Jim brought in, the blind Apache girl." Children peeked from behind carts, and women paused their chores to watch. Some people shook their heads, others chuckled quietly. Most could not understand why Jim had done this, but a few, curious and kind-hearted, felt sympathy for the girl. Despite the attention, Jim continued to teach Ayanna about the town. "The streets can be tricky," he explained. "Listen to the sounds. Horses make a different sound from wagons. Footsteps can tell you who is coming. And smells, don't forget, smells tell you a lot about the place too." Ayanna concentrated, lifting her face to the morning air. She could smell the bread from the bakery, the leather from the saddles, and the faint scent of flowers from a nearby garden. She was learning quickly. With Jim's guidance, she was beginning to understand the town in her own way, even though she could not see it. At first, the townspeople continued to doubt her abilities. When she tried to greet people or help carry small packages, some laughed or shook their heads. "She'll drop it all," they said. "What can a blind girl do anyway?" But Ayanna was determined. She listened carefully, moved slowly but confidently, and began to prove that she could handle tasks with surprising skill. When she delivered a small bundle of herbs to a neighbor's home, she navigated the streets without hesitation, guided only by the sound of voices and the wind. The neighbor, surprised, said, "Well, she actually made it. Impressive." Jim smiled quietly, proud of her progress. "See," he said, "people often doubt what they don't understand. You just need to show them." As the days passed, Ayanna continued to adapt to town life. She learned the layout of the streets by memory, the location of shops, and even shortcuts that Jim himself did not always notice. Her other senses had become sharper over the years, and she could now detect the approach of people, the clatter of hooves, and even subtle changes in the wind that hinted at approaching weather. Still, not everyone welcomed her. A group of local children, curious but mischievous, sometimes followed her, laughing and whispering, thinking they could scare her or trip her up. But Ayanna remained calm. She would stop, listen, and sidestep obstacles, moving gracefully even when she could not see them. Slowly, the children began to respect her. Some even began to help her, guiding her when she asked. Jim also encouraged her to speak with the townspeople. "Your words can teach them as much as your actions," he said. "Don't be afraid to explain yourself." Ayanna started to do just that. She would talk to shopkeepers about what she needed, explain how she could sense danger, and share stories of her time alone in the wilderness. People began to realize she was no ordinary child. She was clever, wise beyond her years, and full of courage. But life was not entirely easy. The town had its own prejudices and fears. Some people still whispered behind her back, worried about what they did not understand. They wondered if a blind Apache girl could truly be part of their community. Ayanna felt this too, sensing the doubts in the tone of people's voices or the hesitation in their steps, but she did not let it discourage her. One afternoon, Jim took Ayanna to the edge of the town where a small creek ran. The sound of running water was soothing, and the gentle breeze brought with it the scent of wildflowers. "This is one of my favorite places," Jim said. "It's quiet and it helps me think." "I want you to feel it too." Yana closed her eyes, lifting her face to the sun. She let the sounds and smells guide her. "I like it," she said softly. "It feels free, like I can breathe without worrying." Jim smiled. "Exactly. You may not see everything, but you can feel it. And that is just as important." Days turned into weeks, and Ayana continued to learn. She began helping in small ways, carrying supplies for the town, guiding visitors who were lost, and even assisting children with games. Her confidence grew, and the townspeople slowly began to accept her. Those who had laughed at her now watched in curiosity, wondering what else she could do. One evening, as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Jim and Ayana sat outside the cabin. "People are starting to notice you," Jim said, "but there's more to come. They'll see who you really are soon enough." Yana listened carefully. "Do you think they will ever understand me?" she asked quietly. Jim looked at her, his face serious but kind. "Some will take time. But you're strong, Ayana, and strength shows in actions, not just words. You have a gift that others don't. They will see it eventually." And Jim was right. Even as some townspeople continued to whisper, others began to watch Ayana with a new sense of respect. They saw how she moved through the town, how she listened, how she helped, and slowly their laughter began to fade. Ayana was not just surviving, she was thriving. She was learning, growing, and showing the town that she was capable, brave, and smart. And though she could not see the skeptical faces, she could feel the change in the air. People were starting to believe in her, just as Jim had from the very beginning. But life in the town would not stay calm for long. There were challenges ahead, moments that would test Ayana's courage and intelligence in ways she had never experienced before. The town, which had laughed at her, would soon realize that she was capable of far more than anyone could imagine. For now, though, it was a quiet evening, the town settling down, and the stars appearing one by one in the clear night sky. Jim and Ayana sat together, listening to the sounds of the town at night, the soft clip-clop of a horse, the distant bark of a dog, and the gentle rustle of the wind. It was a peaceful moment, a brief pause before the challenges that awaited them. Yana felt a sense of hope she had not felt in a long time. She had a place to stay, someone who cared for her, and a town that was slowly beginning to understand her. And deep down, she knew that she would face whatever came next with courage, wisdom, and the unshakable strength that had carried her through the wilderness alone. Jim, watching her, felt the same hope. He knew that the town had yet to see the full extent of her abilities, and he was excited, in a quiet, protective way, to see her show them what she was truly capable of. And so, as the night deepened, Yana prepared herself quietly, unaware that the unthinkable challenge, the moment that would change everything, was not far away. But she was ready. She had learned to listen, to feel, and to trust in herself, and that was the greatest preparation of all. The days in the town had grown warmer, and the sun beat down on the dusty streets with a golden heat. Yana had settled into a rhythm with Jim. She moved through the town with confidence, greeting shopkeepers, carrying small parcels, and helping children learn their games. But life was about to become more complicated, and the calm days were about to be tested. It started one afternoon when the sky began to darken unexpectedly. The wind shifted, blowing stronger and carrying a sharp, electric smell. Jim looked up at the clouds gathering on the horizon. "That doesn't look good," he said, his voice calm but alert. "Storms can come quickly out here." Yana tilted her head, listening carefully. "The wind feels strange," she said. "It's faster and there's a low sound under it, like the earth itself is warning something." Jim nodded, impressed. "You're right. We better make sure the town is ready." He rode quickly to warn the townspeople. He could see the worry on their faces as he called out, "A storm is coming. Secure your homes. Bring in the animals." But not everyone listened. Some shrugged, thinking it was just another summer breeze. Others laughed, underestimating the danger. Meanwhile, Ayana stood quietly, closing her eyes to focus on the sounds around her. She could hear the wind picking up, the rustle of the trees, and even the faint murmur of the creek as it began to swell with incoming rain. She could feel the vibrations of the ground and the tension in the air. Something about the storm was different. It was stronger than usual, and she sensed it would hit hard. Jim returned to her side, frowning. "Some people are not taking this seriously. I worry they won't be prepared in time." Jana placed a hand on his arm. "We can help them," she said quietly. "We just need to act quickly and show them what to do." Jim looked at her, amazed. Even though she could not see, she had an understanding of the world that he often missed. "You're right," he said. "Let's do it." They split up to prepare the town. Jim ran to the stables to secure the horses and livestock, while Ayana moved through the streets, guided by the sounds and smells she had learned to recognize. She called out to people who were still ignoring the warnings, explaining where they needed to secure their belongings, tie down loose objects, and find shelter. Some townspeople still laughed quietly. "What can a blind girl do in a storm?" they whispered. "She can't even see the sky darken." But Ayana ignored them. She relied on her senses, her memory of the town's layout, and her intuition. She guided families to safe spots, instructed children to stay inside, and even helped an elderly couple move their fragile belongings out of harm's way. Every action she took was precise, thoughtful, and calm, and it was slowly making the townspeople realize that she was far from helpless. As the storm approached, the sky darkened rapidly, and the wind howled through the streets. Trees bent, shutters banged against their frames, and dust and debris swirled around. Panic began to spread, and some people froze, unsure what to do. Jim worked to calm them, but even he could not be everywhere at once. Yana, however, moved through the chaos with remarkable ease. She could hear the location of people in danger, feel the vibrations of falling branches, and sense the direction of the strongest wind. She shouted instructions to guide townsfolk to safety. "Move to the corner. Hold onto the railings. Keep calm." People began to follow her voice. They realized she knew where to go, even though she could not see. Slowly, they started trusting her. Jim, running between locations to help as much as he could, kept glancing at her in amazement. He had always known she was capable, but seeing her in action, commanding the storm with her senses alone, was breathtaking. A sudden, sharp crack echoed through the town as a large branch broke from a tree, tumbling toward a small market stall. Jim shouted a warning, but it was Ayana who acted first. She guided the stall owner with precise instructions. "Step back, move the cart to the left." Now, the stall was saved and no one was hurt. A wave of relief passed through the people, and they began to see her in a new light. The storm raged on, stronger and faster than anyone had expected. Rain pelted the rooftops, and the wind threatened to topple fences and tear signs from walls. But Ayana remained calm, moving from place to place, helping wherever she could. She directed people to secure animals, guided children to safe corners, and even helped the baker protect her ovens from the wind. Every action was measured, precise, and life-saving. Some of the townspeople who had mocked her before now watched in awe. They whispered to one another, "How does she know what to do? She can't even see." Jim smiled faintly, pride swelling in his chest. "She doesn't need to see," he whispered to a neighbor who had come to help. "She understands the world in ways we can't imagine." Hours passed, and the storm finally began to subside. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the wind became less fierce. The townspeople emerged cautiously from their shelters, inspecting the damage. They saw that, thanks to Ayana's guidance, very little had been destroyed. Only a few minor mishaps had occurred, but overall, the town had survived unscathed. People began to approach her, their expressions a mixture of surprise and respect. You saved a lot of us," said one of the merchants. "I thought we were in trouble for sure." Ayana smiled faintly. I just listened and helped where I could, she said softly. Everyone helped too. We all worked together. Another townsman, still amazed, said, I didn't think a blind girl could do so much. I was wrong. Yana looked around and realized something important. The laughter, the whispers, and the doubts that had surrounded her since she arrived were slowly being replaced by respect. People were starting to see her not as a helpless child, but as someone capable, smart, and brave. Jim placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You did more than anyone expected, he said. I'm proud of you. She looked at him, her expression calm but proud. I just did what needed to be done, she replied. The storm showed us what was important. We had to protect each other. The town had learned a lesson that day as well. They had learned that courage and skill did not always come from sight, and that wisdom could be found in the most unexpected places. Yana had proven herself not only to Jim, but to the entire town. That evening, after the storm had passed, Jim and Ayana walked through the quiet streets. The air smelled fresh, washed clean by the rain. Trees swayed gently in the breeze, and puddles reflected the soft light of the setting sun. Townspeople emerged to repair damage and help each other, their whispers now filled with admiration rather than doubt. You see, Jim said quietly, people are starting to understand. They're starting to see you for who you are. Yana listened, feeling a warmth in her heart. She had faced the storm and guided others to safety. She had shown strength, courage, and wisdom, and people had recognized it. Even though she could not see their faces, she could feel the change in the air, the respect, the gratitude, and the newfound trust. But Ayana also knew that this was just the beginning. The storm had been a test, but life in the town would bring new challenges, each one requiring her courage, intelligence, and patience. She was ready, and she had Jim by her side, someone who believed in her completely. That night, as they returned to their small cabin, the stars shone brightly above. The town was quiet, but the memory of the storm lingered. Ayana lay down, exhausted but satisfied. She had faced danger, helped others, and begun to change the minds of those who had doubted her. Jim watched her settle in, his heart filled with pride. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, Ayana had the strength to face them. She was no longer just the blind Apache girl that people had laughed at. She was a hero in her own right, and the unthinkable she was capable of had only just begun to reveal itself. As the wind whispered softly through the trees, Ayana drifted into sleep, ready to face a world that was slowly learning to understand her. And Jim knew that the days to come would show the town even more of her remarkable abilities that would leave everyone in awe and forever change the way they saw her. The days following the storm were calmer, but the town remained on edge. People were repairing fences, cleaning up debris, and checking on their neighbors. Though many were still cautious, whispers of Ayana's bravery spread quickly. Some still doubted her abilities, but more and more townspeople began to notice that she was far stronger and wiser than anyone had imagined. Jim knew, however, that the true test for Ayana was still ahead. He had been hearing rumors about a group of outlaws who had been moving through the area, preying on small towns. The town had been lucky so far, but with the storm damage, they were vulnerable. People were scared, and Jim could sense that the outlaws might try to take advantage of the weakened defenses. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, a messenger arrived in the town. He rode quickly into the main square, shouting a warning. Outlaws. A band of them is coming this way. They'll be here by nightfall. The townspeople panicked. Mothers gathered their children, merchants secured their goods, and men grabbed whatever tools or weapons they could find. But no one seemed to know what to do next. The fear in the town was palpable, and for the first time, it seemed that the people might be overwhelmed. Ayana stood quietly, listening to the sounds of the rushing townsfolk. She could feel the tension in the air and the urgency in everyone's movements. Even though she could not see the approaching danger, she could sense it. The vibrations in the ground, the change in the wind, and the rhythm of the approaching horses told her all she needed to know. Jim approached her, concern written on his face. "It's worse than I feared," he said. "People are scared and we don't have enough time to prepare everything." Yana nodded, a quiet determination in her voice. "We can help," she said. "I know what to do, we just need to act quickly and guide everyone." Jim looked at her, a mix of awe and worry in his eyes. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I am," she replied. "Just trust me." Without hesitation, Yana began directing the townspeople. Her voice was calm but commanding, cutting through the chaos. "Move the carts to block the main road. Secure the animals in the stables. Everyone else find safe spots in the buildings. Listen to me and stay calm." The townspeople were surprised. They had never seen a blind girl take charge like this. Some hesitated, unsure whether to follow her instructions, but Jim encouraged them. "Trust her," he said firmly. "She knows what she's doing." Slowly, the people began to listen. Yana guided them with precision, giving exact instructions for where to place barricades, how to protect their livestock, and even which routes would be safest to move supplies. She used her memory of the town, her sense of direction, and her heightened awareness of sounds and vibrations to orchestrate the defense. As the sun sank lower, the sound of approaching horses grew louder. The outlaws were near, their hooves pounding the ground and their shouts echoing across the town. Panic threatened to take over again, but Ayana remained calm. Her voice rang out clearly, giving instructions with confidence. "Everyone, stay behind the barricades. Don't panic. If you see anyone approaching, alert me immediately." The outlaws entered the town, expecting an easy target. They laughed at first, seeing a seemingly unprepared village with scattered people and weak defenses. But they did not expect the coordination and strategy that Ayana had implemented. From behind the barricades, townspeople followed her directions carefully. They moved quickly and efficiently, taking positions to protect their homes and families. Some men grabbed tools to defend the town, while women and children stayed in safe corners, listening for Ayana's instructions. The outlaws were confused. They had anticipated chaos, but instead, they faced a town that seemed prepared and organized. They tried to advance, but Ayana's plan worked perfectly. She had anticipated their moves, guided the townspeople to strategic positions, and used the barricades and natural obstacles to slow the attackers. Jim watched from the side, his heart pounding with pride. He had always known Ayana was capable, but seeing her in action like this was beyond anything he had imagined. She was not just surviving, she was leading, protecting, and inspiring everyone around her. At one point, a group of outlaws tried to break through a side alley. Yana, sensing their approach, shouted instructions to the nearest townspeople. "Block the alley with carts. Stand firm. Don't let them pass." The townspeople moved quickly, creating a solid barricade just in time. The outlaws, frustrated and surprised, realized they could not easily take the town. Every move they made was anticipated, every approach blocked. Yana had turned the town's fear into strategy, and the outlaws had no idea how to respond. As the night grew darker, the outlaws finally realized that they could not win. Their confidence had been shattered by a blind girl's guidance. They retreated, shouting threats, but ultimately leaving the town unharmed. The townspeople erupted into cheers and applause, their voices echoing through the quiet streets. They rushed to thank Ayana, their expressions filled with awe and respect. "I can't believe it," one man said. "You saved us all." "You were amazing," another woman exclaimed. "We never expected anyone to organize us so quickly, let alone a blind girl." Yana smiled faintly, exhausted but proud. "We all worked together," she said softly. "I just helped guide everyone. You all did your part too." Jim stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Yana, you were incredible," he said. "I've never seen anyone handle a situation like that. You saved the entire town." The townspeople, who had laughed at her when she first arrived, now looked at her with complete admiration. They realized that their assumptions had been wrong. They had doubted her abilities because she was blind, but she had proven that courage, intelligence, and leadership were not limited by sight. That night, the town held a small gathering to celebrate. Families shared food, and neighbors spoke warmly to one another. Gianna sat quietly, listening to the laughter and conversation around her. She could feel the happiness and relief in the air, and it filled her heart with a quiet joy. Jim looked at her and said, "You've shown everyone that true strength comes from within. They will never forget this, and neither will I." Gianna nodded. "I'm glad we could protect everyone," she said. "That's what matters most." The town had changed that night. People who had once whispered and laughed now approached her with respect and gratitude. They began to understand that appearances could be deceiving, and that true courage often comes from unexpected places. Even the children, who had once followed her teasingly, now treated her with admiration. They listened to her instructions during games and sought her guidance, eager to learn from someone who had shown such remarkable skill and bravery. Gianna realized that she had not only protected the town, but had also changed the way people saw her. She was no longer just the blind Apache girl who had arrived quietly with Jim. She was a leader, a protector, and an example of courage and intelligence. As the night grew late, the townspeople began to return to their homes, exhausted but grateful. Jim and Gianna walked back to their cabin, the stars shining brightly overhead. The wind was calm now, carrying the scents of the repaired town and the fresh night air. "You did it," Jim said softly. "You faced the danger and turned fear into strength. I'm proud of you, Gianna." She smiled faintly, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I just did what I had to do," she said, "but it feels good to know that people understand now." Jim nodded. "They do. They'll never underestimate you again." Gianna listened to the quiet sounds of the night, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, the soft murmur of the creek nearby. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that the town was safe and that she had proven herself in a way no one would forget. The unthinkable act she had performed that night, the leadership, the bravery, and the intelligence she had shown, had changed everything. People's perceptions had shifted, and respect had replaced doubt. Gianna had not only protected the town, but had also inspired everyone around her, and Jim knew that this was only the beginning. Gianna had shown that she could face any challenge, and that her courage and wisdom were limitless. Whatever the future held, he trusted that she would continue to amaze and inspire those who had once doubted her. As they entered the small cabin, the warmth from the fireplace welcomed them. Gianna settled in, feeling tired but accomplished. She had faced danger, guided the townspeople, and proven herself in the most remarkable way. Jim sat beside her, quietly reflecting on the day. "You've changed the town forever," he said, "and I know that whatever comes next, you'll handle it with the same courage and skill." Gianna nodded, closing her eyes. She felt the comfort of the cabin, the trust of Jim, and the admiration of the town. She knew that she had faced the unthinkable and succeeded, and that knowledge gave her a quiet strength. Outside, the night was calm, the stars twinkling above like tiny guardians watching over the town. Inside, Gianna rested, ready to face whatever new challenges the future might bring. The town had learned a lesson they would never forget. Never underestimate someone who seems different, because true courage and intelligence can come from the most unexpected places. And Gianna, the blind Apache girl, had shown them all exactly what she was capable of. The morning after the outlaws had retreated, the town woke to a quiet, peaceful day. The sun rose gently, casting golden light on streets that had been battered by storm and tested by danger. People stepped outside to inspect their homes, businesses, and barns. They were relieved to find that, thanks to Gianna's guidance the night before, the damage had been minimal. For the first time since her arrival, the town truly saw Gianna, not as the blind Apache girl they had whispered about, doubted, and laughed at, but as a hero who had saved them all. Her name was spoken with respect and admiration in every home, shop, and stable. Mothers and fathers told their children about her bravery, and the children themselves began to look up to her as someone special. Yana walked through the streets with Jim by her side. The townspeople greeted her warmly, many stopping to shake her hand or offer a kind word. She could sense the change in the air. The looks that had once been filled with doubt and ridicule were now full of respect and gratitude. "You did more than I ever imagined," said the baker, smiling as he handed her a warm loaf of bread. "You saved all of us." I don't know how to thank you enough." Yana smiled faintly. "I didn't do it alone," she said. "Everyone helped. You all were brave too." But the townspeople knew that her leadership had been the key. They had seen her give precise instructions, remain calm in the face of danger, and guide them to safety when they had been too scared to act on their own. Her courage and intelligence had turned the tide, and no one could deny it. Jim led her to the small cabin where they lived. "People are going to keep talking about you," he said gently. "They've seen what you're capable of, and I think some of them are starting to learn from you too." Yana nodded. "I hope so," she said. "I want everyone to know that they can be brave even when they're scared." That's what really matters. News of her bravery spread beyond the town. Travelers passing through spoke of the blind Apache girl who had saved a whole community. Other towns sent word, curious to meet her, and learn from the girl who had faced danger with courage and wisdom. Yana, who had once been lonely and unsure, now had a place in the world where she was respected and valued. Life in the town slowly returned to normal. The repairs from the storm were completed, the animals were safe, and the markets bustled once again. But the town was no longer the same. People had learned a lesson about courage, perception, and respect. They no longer judged someone simply by appearances or limitations. They understood that strength could come in many forms, and Ayana had shown them the most powerful example. Children followed her, eager to learn from her. She taught them how to listen carefully, how to sense danger, and how to stay calm in difficult situations. They learned not only skills but also values, patience, wisdom, and bravery. Yana had become a teacher as well as a hero. The adults, too, sought her guidance. Merchants asked her advice on organizing their shops. Farmers consulted her on efficient ways to handle their animals, and the town leaders asked her to help plan for future emergencies. Even though she was young and blind, her intelligence and experience made her an invaluable member of the community. Jim watched all of this with quiet pride. He had known from the beginning that Ayana was special, but seeing the entire town embrace her, respect her, and seek her guidance filled him with happiness. She had come so far, from a girl alone in the wilderness to a hero and leader of a thriving town. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Jim and Ayana sat outside the cabin. The air was warm and sweet, carrying the scents of flowers and fresh bread from the bakery. Ayana listened to the sounds of the town, the laughter of children, the chatter of neighbors, and the distant clop of horses returning home. "It's peaceful now," Jim said. "You did that, Ayana. You helped create this calm and safety." Ayana nodded. "It feels good," she said softly. "I've learned that helping others is the most important thing. Even if people doubt you, you have to try anyway. That's how you make a difference." Jim smiled. "You've done more than that. You've changed the hearts of everyone in this town. They'll never forget what you did, and they'll never underestimate you again." Yana felt a quiet pride. She had faced storms, outlaws, and doubt, and she had come through stronger and wiser. But more importantly, she had found a place where she belonged. The town had become her home, and the people had become her family. Over the next weeks, the town celebrated her bravery in small ways. Children drew pictures of her with sticks and chalk, merchants offered gifts, and neighbors invited her to share meals and stories. Every gesture reminded Ayana that she was valued and respected. One evening, the town held a special gathering in the main square. Lanterns were hung, fires were lit, and people gathered to honor her. Jim stood beside her as the mayor of the town stepped forward. "We have all witnessed something extraordinary," the mayor said, his voice steady and proud. "Ayanna has shown us courage, wisdom, and leadership beyond her years. She has protected us, guided us, and taught us lessons we will never forget. Tonight, we honor her." The townspeople cheered, clapping and shouting words of gratitude. Ayanna felt a warmth in her heart she had never known. She had come to this town as an outsider, a girl many had doubted, but now she stood as a true member of the community, admired and respected by everyone. She spoke softly, her voice carrying over the crowd. "I didn't do this alone," she said. "Each of you helped. You all have courage and you all have the power to make a difference. I am grateful to be part of this town, and I hope we can continue to help each other, no matter what comes." Her words were met with applause and cheers. People felt inspired, realizing that courage and wisdom could come from anyone, regardless of age, sight, or background. Ayanna had not only saved their town, but had also changed their hearts and minds. From that day forward, Ayanna's life in the town was filled with purpose and respect. She continued to help, guide, and teach, always listening carefully, observing keenly, and offering wisdom beyond her years. The town flourished, and people lived with a renewed sense of community and trust. Even travelers passing through would speak of her, telling stories of the blind Apache girl who had saved a whole town. Her reputation grew, but she remained humble, always focused on helping others rather than seeking recognition. Jim often watched her quietly, proud and amazed. He had been her guide, her protector, and her friend, but he knew that Ayanna had grown into someone extraordinary, someone who could face any challenge with courage and intelligence. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ayanna stood outside the cabin, listening to the sounds of the town settling down for the night. Children were tucked safely in their beds, merchants were closing their shops, and neighbors were sharing quiet conversations. The town was at peace, and she had helped create that peace. She closed her eyes, feeling the gentle breeze on her face and the rhythm of life all around her. She had faced loneliness, fear, and danger, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and loved. She had turned doubt into respect, fear into trust, and laughter into admiration. Jim approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've done something incredible, Ayanna," he said softly. "You've changed lives, saved a town, and shown everyone the true meaning of courage. I'm proud of you more than words can say." Ayanna smiled faintly. "I just wanted to help," she said. "I never thought I could make such a difference, but it feels good to know that people believe in me now." The town, the people, and even the world around her had become a place where she belonged. She was no longer just the blind Apache girl who arrived quietly with Jim. She was a hero, a teacher, and a beloved member of the community. And as the stars twinkled above and the night carried a gentle calm, Ayanna knew that whatever challenges came next, she would face them with courage, wisdom, and the quiet strength that had always been inside her. She had proven herself, changed hearts, and inspired others. Her story was no longer one of doubt or laughter. It was a story of bravery, respect, and the unthinkable triumph of a girl who refused to be underestimated. The town would remember her forever. And Ayanna, who had once been alone in the wilderness, had finally found her place in the world, a place filled with love, respect, and endless possibilities.